Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. This is our latest installment in our partnership with the Material Handling Wholesaler magazine. This episode is in conjunction with the October 2020 cover story, which is a salute to women in the material handling industry. So today on the show, we're going to have two women who are in the material handling industry, who are also featured in the cover story as well. We are going to have a former guest of the New Warehouse Podcast, actually, Emily Soloby. She is the founder of Juno Jones Shoes. She's also the co-owner of AAA School of Trucking, and she is a podcast host herself, recently started this year. The podcast is the Hazard Girls Podcast. And we also have Rebecca Butao, who is the National Account Manager at Hannibal Industries. So we're going to talk to them today, talk to them a little bit about how they got into material handling industry, and also a little bit about kind of what's going on and with the situation with women in material handling and how they've kind of transitioned into material handling, and also maybe some of the challenges and some tips for women out there who are interested in transitioning into the industry. So Emily and Rebecca, welcome to the show. How are you guys?
Thank you.
We're good. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Yes, happy to have you. Happy to be doing this kind of group discussion. I guess this is kind of a first for the podcast. So very happy to be doing this. So I guess let's start. Let's get a little background on the both of you. So I guess Emily, you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Well, I'm the founder of Juno Jones, the stylish safety boot company, and as you mentioned, I'm also the founder of Hazard Girls, Women in Non-Traditional Fields, which is an online community. And I'm the host of the Hazard Girls podcast, which we do in partnership with Jacket Media. And that's a weekly show where we interview women about their careers in traditionally male-dominated industries. And I'm the co-owner of AAA School of Trucking, which is a heavy equipment and CDL training company. And I'm a mom. My husband and I are based in Philadelphia, and we have two young children who we are remote schooling right now. So that's a little crazy.
That is a little crazy. Yeah. My son is going through that as well. It's an interesting time.
Yeah,
for sure.
To say the least.
Yeah. Okay. So Rebecca, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as well and what you do?
Perfect. My name is Rebecca Butao. I work at Hannibal Industries. We are one of the largest rack manufacturing companies on the West Coast. I work with our national accounts team. We go direct to customers. Back 15, 16 years ago, Hannibal started out more with the distributor network, and we are fortunate enough that our small direct group has grown to quite a large portion of our business. I specifically deal with large clients, Cisco Foods, and some other large DHL, and so we send multi-million-dollar rack projects into their warehouses. Myself, I'm also a mom. I've got 5, anywhere from 21 down to 12. 3 of them are driving, so that helps when we're stuck at home in a pandemic. And it's every once in a while, we do have all 7 of us here in the house, remote learning or working. So along with our big giant golden retriever, it can be quite a full house.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
It is fun. I can't complain. We're located in Huntington Beach, California. So it's a quick little bike ride down to the beach. So we do have an escape.
That's very good. So you don't put the kids like up in racking system or anything like that for their storage?
No, although I did want to make bunk beds for the boys out of rack, and my husband was opposed. So
He's like, you're taking it a little too far.
he was like, no, it's industrial. That's too far. Yes. So
Yeah. Don't bring your work home, right?
No. But my son actually just recently got a job at Home Depot, and a gentleman asked him, who makes this stuff? And he said, my mom. And the guy looked perplexed. So
it's like a proud mom moment, I guess, right?
Yes.
I'm curious, actually, what's the racking industry like right now with the COVID and pandemic? Is you seeing like a slowdown, or are projects ramping up?
Well, it's actually ramping up. So in the initial shutdown of the pandemic, a lot of our projects were put on hold just because either as project managers, we couldn't travel. Customers were a little gun shy to continue these large, multi-million-dollar projects, especially for my largest client, who is specifically ships food to restaurants. They saw, a 60% reduction in shipping. So couple months in, people got a little more brave, and now we are pretty swamped with shipping all over the country. My crew just went back to the Bahamas yesterday. They're in a 14-day quarantine because they need to finish that project. It's a good 3 more months.
Wow.
So we're busy.
Wow. I think I would love to be quarantined in the Bahamas for 14 days.
Everyone keeps saying that. I'm not so sure. I'll stay home. I live in Huntington Beach, so I can't. The Bahamas isn't quite as, exciting for me.
Yeah, well, I'm in New Jersey, so.
Yeah, okay. You can always come visit us here.
Okay, great. I'll keep that in mind. All right, so both of you are in the material handling industry in some capacity, and, I'm curious, both of you came from initially different types of industry. I think, Rebecca, you went to school for early child development, and then you're involved in real estate a little bit, I believe I saw. And then Emily, you have a background in law. So I'm curious, from the both of you, how did you kind of get to the point where you ended up transitioning into material handling, and, how did that transition go?
Go ahead, Emily.
Oh, thanks. Well, I started my career, as you mentioned, in law, but at first I was a domestic violence victim advocate, and that was during my undergrad years. And then it was after that I went to law school and went to work as an attorney for a nonprofit legal aid organization. And I was handling domestic violence cases and other family law matters. So I knew I wanted to do something in women's rights and to help women in some way, but I wanted a career change. So I went back to graduate school. And I was studying communications and mass media. So that actually, I ended up using that with the podcast. Right. But when I was in grad school, that's where I met my husband, Ryan. And we both worked in audio and video communications for a little while. And then an opportunity came up with a family business. His uncle owned a small truck driving school in Harrisburg, PA, and wanted to retire. So he asked us if we wanted to come work for him and then eventually take over the business. So that's what we did. And we learned the business from the ground up. And then we opened up our own campus in Philadelphia. And eventually we bought the business from his uncle so that he could retire. And so then over the past 11 years, we've just grown that business from a small school with a few trucks into more of a national training and consulting firm. So that's my first entry into material handling, I guess, owning a transportation and equipment training company. And then my second point of entry into the material handling field is Juno Jones. So during those years, as we were growing AAA, we were traveling a lot, going from client meetings to job sites, and I could never quite find the right footwear. So it was either dress pumps with a hidden steel toe, kind of in there, but they were trying to make them look like dress shoes, or you're just traditional Timberland type work boots. So there was nothing in between with the protection I needed. So I began talking to other women, not just in my industry, but in many other fields. And they were so excited about the idea of creating a stylish work boot. So that's when I knew I had to do it. And I decided I had to start Juno Jones.
Interesting. Yeah. I love the fact that, it seems like you, through your career, you've kind of seen these opportunities and you kind of just went after them, which I think is, really motivational and encouraging. And also, the Juno Jones, I think it did pretty well in terms of the launch. I mean, we had talked on the podcast previously last year, right, about that. And, you know, you guys got fully funded on the Kickstarter, right, in like 24 hours, I think, something like that.
Yeah, we hit our goal in 29 hours. We ended up more than tripling our original goal. And it was, and I think a lot of that was the community that we had formed around just women and working in these industries. And it's funny because I never really even realized I was in the material handling industry, I guess, until I began, you know, talking to you and other people in warehousing you know, that's when I sort of realized that it's its own industry. And I kind of like looking at my career, I'm like, oh yeah, I've actually been in this industry for a long time, working in the trucking school with forklifts, and you know, we do all kinds of theory training and warehouse safety. So I've been involved in the industry, and then creating safety boots. I think that's like my true delve into the industry.
Yeah, very cool. I like it's interesting. I guess kind of didn't realize you just fell into the industry, and then sounds like you just realized, I'm in this industry, which is
I didn't realize
cool.
I was in the industry. Yeah, I didn't like really think of it as an industry. I was not really aware, but I thought of it as transportation or manufacturing. But yeah, it's a whole industry, and I'm so happy to be involved in it.
Very cool. All right, Rebecca, how about you? How was your transition?
Well, so like you had said, I actually went to school and got a degree in child development. I originally had wanted to be a marriage and family therapist. That's what the department that you would get a degree from at Cal State Long Beach. And after kind of going through half the process and realizing all the internship hours that I would need, I decided to kind of stick with just the childhood end. I ended up being a dance teacher for a small mobile dance company. I mostly taught dance to preschoolers. And the woman who owned, it was great fun.
That's cute.
Actually, my daughter now works for them. That's how long they've been around. So the owner of the company, her boyfriend at the time, owned a wine importing business. They were from New Zealand, and I needed more hours. And so I kind of helped them out. I ended up part-time selling wine, and I began to import wine and worked at their warehouse in Bell Gardens, California, and learning how the warehouse worked and picking orders and shipping. We would get containers. I constantly was asking questions, and it was so just exciting. I loved learning all these places that these containers came from, and there was all different kinds of products. In addition to wine, they also were a 3PL for Whole Foods Market. They were actually one of the only 3PLs that Whole Foods used at the time. And so learning this entire industry, I actually left for a bit, and that's when I got into real estate and worked for a broker, and did that for just a short while, but had friends still in the industry, and I ended up transitioning into a small distributor office, learned coordinating shipments and projects, and Hannibal was my vendor. That's who I bought rack from, and developed a very close relationship with the sales person, who was a woman, Anna Coette, and stayed great friends with her over the last couple of years, and came right back into the industry. And fortunate for me, Hannibal was hiring project managers, so I jumped on in. Interesting.
I like the story there. And I'm curious, you know, for the people listening, and maybe for women in the industry and just people in the industry in general, you know, how would you say because you kind of utilized the relationship there to continue your career when you got back into material handling. So what kind of tips would you say to be able to foster like those strong type of relationships that you can kind of come back on and count on in the future?
I think part of the reason why Anna and I had developed such a close relationship was because we were both women in this industry. And at the time, there were fewer of us 10 years ago. And so we actually kept in contact. But then as I moved from different companies, I was able to then, you know, develop relationships with our forklift company or develop relationships with the wire deck company. And you chat with people and kind of, you know, as you ask questions, where are you from? Where are you located? You develop those bonds. And each time I moved to a different company, I would actually reach out to my contacts and just let them know I'm now working at Catalina. I'm now working at, you know, Hannibal Industries, and just kind of letting them know where I am in case in our industry, even if you're a trucking company, we ship stuff. I may reach out to Emily's contacts and say, hey, we're trying to move a load from here to California to Pennsylvania. Do you have contacts in that area? It's a large community, but you'd be surprised at how small it is. So, asking questions, getting to know the people you work with on a daily basis over the phone, whether you're selling to them or purchasing from them, you'd be quite surprised when you're in need to reach out and say, have you heard of any opening for a project manager or accounts receivable? People are very friendly.
Interesting. Yeah, I love the insight there. So thank you for that. And I'm hearing kind of like a similarity from the both of you, that there's like this community in the material handling industry. I know, Emily, you have the Hazard Girls community that you created on Facebook, I think it is. And Rebecca, you're talking about how, you kind of, I guess, found this connection with, I think you said her name was Anna.
Anna.
Yeah. And you guys kind of related in that sense. So do you see that like there is kind of, I guess, this camaraderie when you get connected with other women in the material handling industry?
Oh, absolutely. And I was fortunate enough this year to join Maheda. So they've got a whole women in material handling group. And so we actually have a monthly call, and we get put on a team of women who have similar job titles, and we're in the similar industry, but we're not actual competitors. And it's amazing to be able to share our stories. 3 of us are been in the industry 10 to 20 years, and then the other 3 are much younger. They're 1 or 2 years out of college. And it has been quite a great network. But also, I really love sharing my knowledge with the youngers to be able to help them navigate and move a little faster and maybe a little further than I have.
And what's the name of the organization?
It's Maheda, Mheda.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I see they're kind of partnered with MHI, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's how I was recommended for the Salute to Women magazine article. It was through my Maheda group.
Ah, very cool.
And we actually have a name for our group. We're called Steel Magnolias because all of us are in the steel industry. So
that's cool. I like that. All right, cool. We'll definitely have to put some information about that on the newwarehouse.com as well.
Yes,
the blog
it's
post.
a great resource.
All right, cool. And then Emily, talk a little bit about the Hazard Girls Facebook group that you guys have, and how that's kind of grown and people have kind of found, I guess, a place of, I don't know what you want to call it, but how people have kind of connected there.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the internet and social media has done more for women in material handling and in these industries than we probably could have imagined, even like 5 or 10 years ago. I wasn't aware of that organization, but there are organizations that I'm involved with, like NAWIC, which is the National Association of Women in Construction and Women in Trucking. And then there's Society of Women Engineers, Women in Manufacturing. And these organizations have existed for a while and have done a lot for women in the industry. But I think when social media got involved and the awareness of these organizations and these fields, it just really increased. And so where before you might have only heard of women in trucking, if you worked in that industry, now if you're on Instagram or Facebook and even have a remote interest like in these types of fields, you'll have heard about these communities. But Hazard Girls is the community that we started, that I started originally. It was just me, but there are others of us now. And that came out of Juno Jones, and it just came out of the Instagram community that we had created around the Safety Boot brand. And it's a group for all women in non-traditional industries. It's called Hazard Girls because it really started with women in hazardous industries, anything where you would really need steel toe boots or safety boots. But it expanded into women in various industries. And I think, what makes it a little bit different from some of the other groups is that it's not so specific to just one industry. It really just kind of puts everything out there for women in any kind of male-dominated industry to feel welcome and join. And that's just sort of it has its own use in that way. But yeah, so I would agree with that. I think community is really important. And it really is what has changed things for women in a lot of ways.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think social media in general and the internet has just kind of made the world smaller in a sense. So it's been easier to connect with like-minded people, which is really cool. Yeah. And so I'm curious now. Both of you guys transitioned into the material handling industry from a different industry, and I know that. I'm sure, there were some challenges and maybe I'm sure at times you got some like funny looks or even comments or something of that matter. I mean, my experience as a warehouse manager, I mean, I've heard other warehouse managers say things as well about, females being in the warehouse. And I think it's terrible. I mean, I've always had, when I hire everybody. If you can do the job, you can do the job. It doesn't really matter. And even in the warehouse that I work in now, I think we're probably about 40% female that's on the warehouse floor working and on forklifts and everything. And so I'm curious, what kind of challenges did you have initially when you're transitioning into the industry? And, did those challenges that you face kind of motivate you more? And if so, like how did you take that? Like how can you say to maybe some women that are out there now that are thinking about it, maybe skeptical because of those types of things, how can you take those challenges and make them into something that motivates you more?
Do you want to go first, Emily?
Yeah, whoever wants to take
Sure.
it.
I love this question, Kevin.
I know, I'm excited too.
This hits home for me so much. Well, my biggest challenge in the trucking school was being given credit for my work. And I'm a partner with my husband in that business, so I'm not from him, but we joined the business together. We set up the Philadelphia campus together, and my job in the earlier years was procurement. So I was the one writing proposals, doing pitches, traveling to DC to meet with government officials. Yet constantly it was assumed that this was my husband's business and that I just worked there. Like maybe I helped out, answer the phones, but it was never like that. We've always been very much equals. And I used my legal background and expertise to secure large contracts and to grow the company. And my husband was always telling people, like, it's Emily's the one responsible for this. She gets the credit because it was so annoying to him too. And he saw how everyone from our own employees to literally our good friends would assume it was all him. And to this day, people will still say to me, your husband's business. So I think I realized at a certain point that was never going to change no matter what I did in the company. And that was part of my motivation for wanting to start something new and something that people wouldn't assume was someone else's work. So that's one of the reasons I really wanted to start Juno Jones.
Gotcha. Very interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, I don't know. I mean, it's a terrible thing, I think, because it is kind of like you're taking away your credit, and I don't think that's fair. I mean, but it's really cool, I think, how you kind of took some negative energy that you're receiving, even you said from, close friends, and took that and kind of used it and spun it into a positive and motivating you to just build your own thing, just to kind of say like, I can do this, and you're still doing the other thing too. And so it's kind of like you're doing even more. So I like that a lot. So I'm happy that you can do that. So Rebecca, how about you?
I think for me, it was, I'm a very hands-on person. I'm a great problem solver. And my first company I worked with, the small distributor, the gentleman was old school and I became his coordinator, but it was clear that I wanted to get out on job sites. I learned the nomenclature and what the parts meant and where they went, and dealt with installers, but I wanted to see it and help figure out when things weren't working well, how I could, make those pieces fit. So I asked to be, allowed to go to job sites, and I told him I wanted to be a project manager, and he had said, no, women aren't project managers, and you're a great coordinator, stay in your lane.
Wow.
And so I took it as a challenge, and I thanked him and said, I'm Greek and Italian. I don't take no for an answer. Well, you will see, I will prove to you, you will want me out in the field. And within 6 months, he let me go out in the field, and I was able to be a project manager to some extent. But it was only very small areas, very small projects. And I was so blessed to then have moved on to different companies. And at Hannibal, I was hired as a project manager, and it was national. So I had not realized when I got the job, I would be flying all over the country. And I was terrified of flying. Oh. So I took that and thought, okay, I wanted this opportunity. I asked for it. I'm being given it. Let's see what we can do with it. And so I hopped on planes and flew to job sites. And my initial, onset into a job site, many times people, think I'm the sidekick to our sales rep. But I actually am the national accounts manager, and I have a full understanding of our projects and how they run and how the components we manufacture go together. And when things don't fit, I am more than capable of strategizing with the installers or the customer to come up with options. And so, I'm a little more quiet in the field than I am here at home, but I take my time, listen, and then use the knowledge I have in a very slow moving way. And I have gained a lot of respect, and my customers sincerely trust me and actually turn to me. Most people don't call our sales rep, they call me because I'm the person who puts together the proposals and all of that. So I think for me, my biggest challenge was being able to get out in the field and actually be on construction sites. And as a woman who's been in Seattle recently and in construction, having cute, fashionable boots, Emily, will be so... I even reached out to her by email and said, hey, when are the power pants coming? Because we need cute pants that have pockets that fit us well, because, we're on construction sites, and a hard hat and a safety vest is hard to make look good, but confident and comfortable. It's a power suit for a reason. Yeah. And so even though we're women and we're in a male-dominated industry and we have specific gear or outfits we need to wear, we still want to feel that confidence and the identity of who we are as women. I like fashion. I wear fashionable clothes and want to be able to wear that when I'm in the field. So
you don't have to choose one.
Right. It's having that identity. And the team I work with, including the executives at Hannibal, the vice president and the president and my direct boss, they're very supportive of women in our industry. And they let us go out there. They are thankful that we're on the team because we bring a different perspective. And I'm a peacemaker, which helps when a lot of men are bickering on a job site, which happens a lot. Things do not go smoothly in construction.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. I mean, I love the different perspectives. I think that, both sides of the table can bring. And I can agree with you 100%, that men will just kind of bicker and have this ego that feeds it. And you need kind of that peacemaker.
Right.
And it's kind of crazy. Yeah. So it's really interesting how you both kind of, I guess, came up against almost like this criticism, like direct criticism basically, and like a wall, but you both pushed through and didn't let it discourage you. So I think it's really, really encouraging, and I hope that some people that are listening that maybe are facing the same thing or something that is discouraging like that, that they can kind of take away from what you both have been able to pursue and push through and accomplish, and kind of take that on their own and be able to do that as well. So I really appreciate you guys sharing that, and I think that
thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's something that needs to change. I think it's ridiculous personally that people would view it in any different way, because I think it's we can all do the job. There's no difference there.
True. And there's also an older dynamic, some of the more, classical ideas of women and male roles. But I think as women, you just got to get creative. Sometimes it's good to go around and kind of come up with new and innovative ways in order to get those next 2 or 3 steps ahead, instead of trying to, kind of fight that ceiling. And we just kind of get creative and move around it.
There you go. That's good.
Emily did. She got so creative. She made new clothes.
Yes. Very cool. Very cool. So, I'm curious, too, for females that are out there. And I will say that I work closely with, some supply chain students. Many of them are female, actually. And I think a few of them listen to the show. If they are not, I'm going to tell them to listen to this one because I mentor them a little bit in a sense through Apex Supply Chain Association. So if they are listening or other females are listening out there, I'm curious, from the both of you, what advice do you have for them if they are looking to transition into these types of roles, or even if they are studying something like in STEM or supply chain? And they're going to be going into what's historically been male-dominated industries. What advice do you have for them on kind of getting into the role and being able to transition successfully without getting discouraged maybe by going through similar things that you went through?
Having 3 girls in this house, the main thing I tell these young ladies is always know your value. Know your personal value. When you know that, then when you come to any new position, you kind of set a goal and then think of, where do I want to be? Do I want to just stay here at this position, which is fine, great. But if you have ideas of where you kind of want to move, that can help you. When you know your value and then you set your goals, you can then make steps for yourself and ask for the opportunities that will get you step by step closer to that goal. One of the things that I have done at Hannibal is raised my hand and asked for opportunities. I want to be a part of that. I want to join that team. If you don't raise your hand and tell them, I want to be a part, and also I know what I'm capable of, then people may not know.
Interesting. Yeah. I think that's good advice, definitely in general. Because I tell people all the time, it's, they say like, oh, well, I'm thinking about this and maybe this will happen. And then I just, did you ask, and just
right.
ask, right? It doesn't hurt to ask, so.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's really good advice. How about, on your end, Emily?
Yeah. My main piece of advice would be, just as we've talked about, find your community, both your professional organization, and your online communities of like-minded women, and just build up your support network, because whatever you're going through, there's almost always going to be someone who has gone through, if not the exact same thing, then something very similar. And nowadays with Facebook groups, you can literally post it in the group and someone will answer your question. Usually you'll get a lot of answers, and it is so helpful. And if someone isn't able to answer your question, they will point you to a person in the industry who is more than happy to help you. And so I think these are resources that we didn't have just 5 or 10 years ago. So, they're there to help you and provide advice. So call in your backup.
All right, great. So really good advice from the both of you, and happy that you could share your experiences for the people out there that may be going through similar things or maybe need a little motivation as well. You both have kind of broken through in a great way, and what you're doing is amazing work. So I really appreciate it as well, being a part of the material handling industry. Now, before we wrap up, I want to, I guess, maybe turn the microphone around a little bit. And how about you ask each other a question?
Oh, that's good. Okay, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you've kind of design this, shoe company, and you're ready to even potentially expand within that company, maybe more products, do you think you will then expand past that and move into gear for other industries, or will you just kind of stick within the material handling and kind of the apparel-ish wares?
So our plans with Juno Jones are to keep building the brand, to provide other styles in safety footwear for women in various industries. So yes, in that regard. And, but we're not planning on like launching really clothing lines or anything like that. We're focusing on footwear. We may have a few things here and there, a couple, key pieces, but we're not trying to create an apparel brand. We're really focused on footwear.
Got it.
Yeah. Although I really do like the idea of those pants.
I'm just saying.
Well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Because I found it fascinating that you overcame your fear of flying. And I would love to know more about how you did that.
Well, two ways. One was my first business trip. I had been with Hannibal only 1 week, and my colleague booked the trip for me. I showed up at the airport. I was terrified. I'd been up all night, just tossing and turning, getting on that plane. And I got to the airport, and I got to the gate and started boarding, and was looking around for him. And I finally texted him, "Where are you? Are you going to miss the flight?" And he's like, "I'm sitting in front of the gate. Our flight doesn't leave for an hour." I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm on the flight." And he's like, "Get off." So I stood up, and there was maybe 5 or 10 people still boarding. And of course, being the very enthusiastic me, I yelled out, "I need to get off this flight." So everyone looked a little panic stricken. And so they escorted me off and, I said, "I'm on the wrong flight." And they were so confused. So they rebooked me, and I met my colleague down at the end, and all this drama was, a good 20, 30 minutes. By the time I sat down at the gate, my nerves had just kind of settled out. And the rest of the flight, I hopped on with him, and we were chatting, and I was asking all kinds of questions. We were headed to Houston to our other plant. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even think about it. And so from then on, I decided that it's all in my mind, and that I have the ability to have a different perspective on my flight. Mm-hmm. And I still had a few nerves. And then my best friend, who is also an attorney, was very matter of fact. She grounds me. I'm the dreamer, and she's the smart one. And so she said, "Listen here, do you even know of anyone who has died in a plane crash?" I said, "No." And she said, "If your day is the same day as the pilot's, it's going to happen. Most likely, it's not your day. So just get on the plane and get to the job site." And since then, I love flying. I love having 4 or 5 uninterrupted hours from my phone, working, meeting the people next to me. I've met a couple really interesting characters. And so I just love being able to kind of have that connection. Now with the pandemic, it's a little different, but Hannibal, part of me overcoming my fear of flying actually symbolizes the journey I've had with Hannibal, and that I started as a very eager, excited project manager who still had a good skill set, but it was this mountain of overcoming fear, learning how to travel on my own. I went to Canada. I'd never been out of the country. Mm-hmm. And I went, without my husband or my children. And it was amazing to be able to I've missed flights or had flights canceled. I've slept in airports, had no luggage at one point. You just learn to manage and be flexible. And I feel like this amazingly strong, accomplished woman, not so much because I built something amazing and huge, but just the fact that I overcame a very deep fear that I'd had my entire life.
Yeah, I think that's badass. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it too. That's great. So thank you, ladies, so much for being on the show. You both are awesome, and I'm happy that you could share your story, and I'm happy that we could share it with the audience as well, and give you guys a chance to reach out to people, and also share the great resources of the communities you guys talked about as well. So thank you very much. So Emily, how can people find out more about, I guess, all 3 things: Juno Jones, AAA School of Trucking, and the Hazard Girls podcast?
Oh, sure. Well, if you go to junojones.com, it's JUNOJONES. From that site, you can navigate to the Hazard Girls community just by clicking on the Hazard Girls tab.
Okay.
But and you can also check out the boots that way. And then for AAA School of Trucking, it's just AAACDL.com.
All right, great. And we'll definitely post that information on the newwarehouse.com as well. Rebecca, how can people get in touch with you, and how can they find out more about Hannibal Industries?
Well, we also have a website. It's HannibalIndustries.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on that. And then lastly, hopefully, we'll all be able to get back to ProMat or Modex.
Yeah.
And you can find us there in our big booth.
Okay,
we like
great.
to deck it out with different costumes, by the way. We all end up matching. We have a theme each year. So
Interesting. I'll have to track you down. We should have a podcast booth at ProMat as well, as long as ProMat is in person, which hopefully it is. Yeah.
At some point, someday. Yes.
All right, great. So thank you both very, very much.
Thank you, Kevin.
I have to say, actually, I think maybe this is one of my favorite podcasts that I've done. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. I love it.
An honor, and it was really fun to be featured with someone else. I've never done that either. So
Yeah,
I'm
all
excited.
around.
I'm going to come find you on Hazard Girls, Emily. I'm very excited about that. Good job. Way to represent us.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, so much. And we will put more information on the newwarehouse.com as well. And to read the Material Handling Wholesaler October 2020 cover story, you can go to mhwmag.com. And thank you both again.
Thank you both so much.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.